The power of sleep in human achievement when night falls, and the world drifts to rest. The mind of a genius often remains a restless theater of creativity and insight. Across history, the greatest minds, those whose inventions, ideas, and artistry have transformed our lives, have all shared a curious relationship with sleep. For some, sleep was a sacred refuge, a wellspring of inspiration. For others, it was a strategic tool, carefully controlled and manipulated to extend their waking hours. Take a moment to imagine Leonardo da Vinci, the Renaissance polymath who painted the Mona Lisa and sketched flying machines centuries ahead of their time. Legend has it that Leonardo rejected the typical 8-hour slumber. Instead, he favored a fragmented sleep schedule, stealing 20-minute naps throughout the day and night. His approach, called polyphasic sleep, shattered conventional wisdom and allowed him to fill his waking hours with relentless study, observation, and invention. Or consider Nikola Tesla, the eccentric genius behind alternating current electricity. Tesla reportedly slept only 2 hours per night, working obsessively on his revolutionary machines. His mind was a furnace of ideas, fueled by brief rest and long hours of intense focus. At the other end of the spectrum, Albert Einstein revered his sleep, known to slumber for 10 hours nightly with naps to boot. Einstein believed that rest was as crucial to his groundbreaking theories as the equations themselves. He understood intuitively what science now confirms, that sleep is an active state in which the brain consolidates memories, nurtures creativity, and restores mental energy. These remarkable individuals reveal a profound truth. Sleep is not merely downtime, but a vital, dynamic process that underpins human achievement. Yet, their diverse sleep habits, from Da Vinci's segmented naps to Einstein's long nights, challenge our modern assumptions about what good sleep looks like. The night workings of the mind for centuries, sleep was a mystery. People knew they needed it, but its purpose was largely misunderstood. Today, science peels back the curtain to reveal a bustling world within the sleeping brain. Sleep is divided into stages: light sleep, deep slow-wave sleep, and REM sleep, the phase where vivid dreams emerge. Each stage plays a unique role. During deep sleep, the brain quietly solidifies memories gathered throughout the day, like a diligent archivist organizing knowledge for future use. This is essential for learning and retaining skills. Then, in REM sleep, creativity blossoms. The brain sifts through memories, recombining fragments to generate new ideas and novel solutions. Dreaming isn't random. It's a playground for innovation. Many artists and scientists report breakthrough ideas emerging after a night's rest or from vivid dreams. Sleep also manages emotions, smoothing out anxiety and stress, sharpening mental clarity, necessary foundation for any creative endeavor. Sleep and creativity. A timeless partnership throughout history, sleep has been more than a physiological need. It's been an invisible collaborator in genius. Take Salvador, the surrealist painter who explored the hypnagogic state, the borderland between wakefulness and sleep to capture bizarre and imaginative visions. Practiced a technique where he held a key while dozing. As he slipped towards sleep, the key would fall, waking him to record the fleeting images his mind conjured. Or Winston Churchill, who amidst the crushing weight of World War II, carved out time for afternoon naps. While the world expected tireless leadership, Churchill understood that brief rest fortified his stamina and resolve, allowing him to make critical decisions under pressure. Even Benjamin Franklin, a polymath and founding father of the United States, prized a regimented daily schedule that began early in the morning and valued restorative sleep as part of his success formula. The myth of burning the midnight oil in our culture today, sleeping less, is often glorified. Successful people are portrayed as sleep-deprived warriors powering through the night. The phrase "I'll sleep when I am dead" is a badge of honor for many. But history's greatest minds tell a different story. They show us that the quality and timing of sleep can be far more important than simply cutting hours. Thomas Edison famously quoted as saying, "Sleep is a criminal waste of time." Ironically understood the value of short naps to recharge. He used brief moments of rest as strategic pauses to fuel bursts of creativity. Meanwhile, Margaret Thatcher, the former British Prime Minister, survived on just 4 hours of sleep per night, but maintained razor-sharp focus through discipline and routine. Yet even she acknowledged the toll chronic sleep deprivation can take over time. Why sleep makes us smarter? Sleep does more than help us feel rested. Physically changes our brains. During sleep, synapses strengthen between neurons, reinforcing the neural pathways essential for memory and learning. Toxic waste products that accumulate in the brain during waking hours are flushed out, protecting brain health. Creativity-enhancing processes like associative thinking and insight generation occur, especially during REM sleep. These functions explain why pulling an all-nighter often backfires. Without sleep, the brain struggles to connect dots, solve problems, and maintain emotional balance. The diverse sleep patterns of geniuses. Not all geniuses slept the same way. Some, like Leonardo da Vinci, may have followed polyphasic sleep patterns, breaking sleep into multiple short naps over 24 hours, gaining more waking hours but requiring precise timing to avoid exhaustion. Others, like Einstein, preferred long, uninterrupted sleep, often supplementing with daytime naps, prioritizing brain recovery. This diversity highlights a vital point. There is no single perfect sleep schedule. Sleep needs are highly individual, shaped by biology, lifestyle, and work demands. Rest is a foundation, not a luxury. By tracing the lives of history's geniuses, a powerful lesson emerges. Rest is not a barrier to achievement, but its foundation, whether it's through long nights, short naps, or segmented sleep. These individuals recognized and harnessed sleep's power. In today's fast-paced world, this insight is more relevant than ever. With distractions and demands vying for attention, reclaiming quality rest is essential for nurturing creativity, productivity, and mental well-being. Your nightly routine as a launchpad for greatness. As we continue to explore the unique sleep habits of history's greatest minds, consider your own rest patterns. What can you learn from their approaches? How might shifting your view of sleep from an obligation to an opportunity transform your own creative and intellectual potential? In the coming chapters, we will walk with Leonardo da Vinci, Nikola Tesla, Winston Churchill, and others through their nightly rituals, uncovering secrets that propelled them toward greatness. Rest assured, the story of sleep is not just about shutting your eyes. It's about opening your mind to the possibilities that emerge when rest and genius intertwine. Leonardo da Vinci, the man who mastered sleep like art in the bustling streets of Florence during the late 15th century. A man walked with a restless energy unlike any other. Leonardo da Vinci, artist, inventor, and thinker, was a force of nature, a whirlwind of curiosity and creativity that refused to be bound by the usual rules of time. His mind raced ahead of his era, sketching machines that wouldn't fly for centuries and painting portraits whose secrets remain debated even today. Yet, what truly set Leonardo apart was not only the brilliance of his ideas, but how he managed the most basic human need: sleep. The legend of Leonardo's unusual sleep. Stories passed down through time whisper that Leonardo never truly slept the way most people did. Unlike his contemporaries who likely enjoyed long hours of rest, Leonardo allegedly adopted a radical pattern, sleeping in short bursts of about 20 minutes every few hours. Imagine a day segmented into 6 or more parts, each punctuated by a brief nap. This was Leonardo's alleged secret to stretching his waking hours. This sleep schedule, now known as polyphasic sleep, was centuries ahead of its time. While historians debate the accuracy of this claim, what remains clear is Leonardo's seemingly boundless energy and the sheer volume of work he produced. Did his sleep pattern enable him to spend more hours drawing, inventing, and pondering the mysteries of the world? A mind that couldn't rest. Leonardo's notebooks reveal a restless mind, hopping between subjects with astonishing speed. One moment he was dissecting the anatomy of a bird's wing, the next sketching plans for a war machine or composing music. This frenetic pace may explain why conventional sleep would have felt like a prison to him, instead of surrendering to a long, uninterrupted night's rest. He allowed his mind brief respiza, momentary closing of the eyes, a dip into the world between wakefulness and sleep. This in-between state, called the hypnagogic state, is where creativity often flourishes. Leonardo seemed to intuitively tap into this twilight zone, capturing fleeting images and insights that later blossomed into masterpieces. Maximizing time to create. To understand Leonardo's possible sleep routine, imagine how 20-minute naps every 4 hours would alter the day. Rather than losing hours to sleep, he reclaimed much of that time for work. Instead of sleeping 8 hours straight, he would sleep just 2, scattered throughout the day and night. This schedule gave Leonardo nearly 22 hours of waking time, a massive advantage for a mind driven by relentless curiosity. But such a sleep pattern demanded discipline. Short naps must be timed precisely to avoid fatigue. And it's likely Leonardo's intense passion for knowledge helped him overcome the challenges of such an unusual rest cycle. Sleep and creativity. A natural partnership. Leonardo's approach shows how rest and creativity are intertwined. Modern science supports this. During sleep, especially REM sleep, the brain makes novel connections and consolidates memories, ingredients essential for creative breakthroughs. By frequently dipping in and out of sleep, Leonardo may have entered REM phases multiple times a day, refreshing his mind regularly and fueling his endless ideas. The cost of restless genius. Of course, such an extreme sleep pattern is not without risks. Polyphasic sleep can lead to sleep deprivation symptoms if not carefully managed. Leonardo's contemporaries likely saw him as eccentric, perhaps even mad. But his willingness to challenge norms extended beyond art and science to his very daily rhythm. Lessons from Leonardo today. While most of us aren't equipped to follow such a demanding sleep schedule, Leonardo's example invites us to rethink rest. Could shorter, intentional naps boost our creativity? Might breaking our workday into cycles of focus and rest help us sustain energy? Leonardo teaches that sleep isn't simply an obligation but a tool, a way to sculpt time, just as he sculpted stone and paint. A night in Leonardo's world. Picture the streets of Florence after dusk, lanterns flickering and the city quieting. Inside a cluttered workshop, Leonardo stirs from a brief nap. With a flicker of inspiration fresh from his dreams, he grabs charcoal and begins sketching a new flying machine. He works for an hour, then rests again 20 minutes to recharge. Ideas flow like a river. Minutes of rest transform into hours of creation. Sleep is not a barrier but a bridge connecting dreams to reality, allowing Leonardo to pour his genius onto paper night and day. Conclusion. Leonardo da Vinci's unique relationship with sleep reflects a mind that refused to rest conventionally because it never truly rested at all. His rumored polyphasic sleep routine shows us that rest and genius are not opposites, but partners. Each nap a pause that propelled him further into the unknown. Understanding Leonardo's sleep secrets, we glimpse how great minds bend even the most fundamental human rhythms to unlock their potential. And how, perhaps, we might learn to do the same. Nikola Tesla, the man who slept little but dreamed big in the dim glow of a New York City laboratory. Long after the city streets had quieted, Nikola Tesla worked tirelessly. The world knew him as a brilliant inventor, a man whose ideas sparked the second industrial revolution, radio, wireless power. But behind Tesla's towering intellect was a secret that puzzled many. He rarely slept, often claiming he needed barely 2 hours a night. How could a man who slept so little dream so big? The relentless pursuit of innovation. Born in 1856 in the village of Smiljan, what is now Croatia, Tesla's childhood was marked by vivid visions and an extraordinary memory. From an early age, he showed signs of intense focus and a mind that could envision complex machines in his head before ever building them. Throughout his life, Tesla was driven by a near-obsessive work ethic. His inventions, alternating current motors, the Tesla coil, early radio transmissions, were fruits of relentless experimentation. And yet, unlike many, Tesla's rest was minimal. He claimed to sleep just 2 hours per night, often working through the rest of the night in his lab. A sleep pattern beyond the norm. Tesla's sleep habits bordered on the extreme. Some accounts suggest he believed sleep was a waste of time, a brief interruption in his pursuit of progress. But Tesla's approach was more complex than mere disregard for rest. He embraced short naps and micro-rests, squeezing small windows of downtime between intense work periods. Sometimes he'd rest his eyes for minutes, rejuvenating enough to continue. The science behind Tesla's sleep. Modern sleep science would caution against Tesla's minimal rest. 2 hours per night is far below recommended levels and insufficient for most people to complete necessary deep and REM sleep cycles. Yet Tesla seemed to possess a remarkable biological resilience. Some speculate he might have had a rare genetic ability to function with less sleep without cognitive decline, though this remains unproven. More importantly, Tesla's intense mental focus might have enabled him to enter deep states of concentration, compensating for lack of sleep by maximizing efficiency during waking hours. Dreams as inspiration despite or perhaps because of his scant sleep. Tesla often credited his inventions to vivid dreams and visions. He claimed that complex designs appeared fully formed in his mind during moments of rest or semi-consciousness. For Tesla, dreaming was not passive.
Active.
It was an active process of problem-solving and innovation. One famous story tells of how Tesla conceived the idea for the rotating magnetic field, fundamental principle behind alternating current during a vivid dream, the price of minimal sleep. While Tesla's productivity was extraordinary, his sleep habits likely contributed to his personal struggles. He experienced bouts of insomnia, obsessive behaviors, and social isolation. His relentless schedule took a toll on his health and relationships. Tesla's life is a cautionary tale. While minimal sleep can sometimes fuel bursts of genius, it often comes at great personal cost. Lessons from Tesla's life. Nikola Tesla's sleep secrets challenge modern assumptions. He defied conventions, showing that extraordinary focus can sometimes compensate for limited sleep. Dreams and rest even brief can spark innovation. But extreme sleep deprivation is not sustainable or healthy for most. A night in Tesla's lab. Picture Tesla, alone in his laboratory, illuminated by the soft hum of arc lights and the crackle of electricity. While others sleep, Tesla sketches new ideas, adjusts coils, and notes measurements. Moments of brief rest punctuate his worker-quick nap on a leather chair, eyes closed but mind alert. In these rare pauses, dreams and reality blur, fueling breakthroughs that would electrify the world. Conclusion: Nikola Tesla's relationship with sleep was unconventional, minimal, fragmented, and driven by an unyielding desire to create. Though science warns against such extremes, Tesla's story reminds us that sleep, even when brief, is a gateway to imagination and innovation. His legacy is proof that dreams, whether in sleep or waking life, are the sparks that light the fires of genius. Thomas Edison, the Catnap King. The year was 1879, the laboratory in Menlo Park was alive with the smell of hot metal and the soft hum of strange experiments. A young assistant named Charles tiptoed through the mess of wires, jars, and tools, searching for his boss. It was 2:15 in the afternoon, prime time for invention, but Thomas Edison was nowhere to be seen. Finally, Charles spotted him. There he was, slumped in a wooden chair, head tilted back, mouth slightly open, his ever-present notebook resting on his chest. Edison wasn't dead, sick, or bored. He was napping. "Mr. Edison," Charles whispered. One eye opened, sharp as a hawk's. Edison straightened his waistcoat and grinned. "Ever wake a man who's stealing dreams?" he said cryptically. And then stood instantly alert, as though the nap had been a quick recharge, nothing more. A mind that refused to rest. Edison was not like other men. While most people needed a solid 8 hours of sleep, Edison thought that was ridiculous. To him, sleeping too much was a waste of precious time, time that could be spent inventing light bulbs, phonographs, or moving pictures. Instead, he practiced polyphasic sleep, short bursts of rest scattered throughout the day. A 20-minute nap here, a 15-minute doze there. It was as if his brain was a rechargeable battery that only needed small top-ups. His friends thought it was madness. His rivals thought it was arrogance. But Edison believed that while others slept, he could change the world. The secret nap weapon. Edison's favorite trick was something he called the catnap test. Whenever he was stuck on a problem, he would sit in a chair holding a steel ball in each hand. Beneath his hands on the floor were 2 metal plates as he drifted into the earliest stage of sleep. The plates were strange. Creative thoughts swim between waking and dreaming. His muscles would relax. The balls would drop with a loud clang, jolting him awake. And in that split second between dream and reality, Edison would often find the very idea he needed. That moment, he once told an interviewer, is when the mind is most fertile. A factory that never slept at Menlo Park. Work went on day and night. Edison didn't just keep odd hours for himself. He kept his team on his schedule too. Assistants were used to being called to test an experiment at 3 a.m. their eyes half shut, but their minds buzzing with the energy of creation. Some hated it, some thrived on it. But all of them knew they were part of something bigger, a revolution in how the world lived, lit, and listened. The price of genius, of course. Edison wasn't entirely immune to the laws of nature. While he claimed to thrive on only a few hours of sleep per day, there were times after weeks of relentless work when he would collapse and sleep for 12 hours straight. His body, it seemed, demanded a rebellion. Historians still debate whether Edison's strange sleep habits were the true source of his brilliance, or whether they simply allowed him to squeeze more hours into his work. But there is no question that his unconventional approach made him a legend in both invention and endurance. Legacy of the nap master today. Sleep scientists acknowledge that short naps can indeed boost creativity and focus, though few recommend Edison's extreme schedule for the average person. But the image remains. Thomas Edison, head tilted back in a cluttered workshop, drifting just far enough into sleep to pluck a spark of genius from the dream world, and then jolting awake to turn that spark into light. Napoleon's Midnight March, Paris, 1806. The war room smelled faintly of candle wax and gunpowder residue. Maps lay sprawled across a heavy oak table, dotted with small lead soldiers marking enemy positions. Outside, the city slept under a blanket of fog. But inside the Tuileries Palace, one man's mind was marching ahead of the dawn. Napoleon Bonaparte, Emperor of the French, was no stranger to sleepless nights. To him, sleep was not an indulgence, it was a weapon, something to be rationed, controlled, and deployed like cavalry at the right moment. His marshals often said, "The emperor sleeps when he wishes, and wakes when he wishes." They did not mean it metaphorically. He had trained himself to nap in short bursts, sometimes on a horse, sometimes in the corner of a tent with boots, still muddy from the march. On this particular night, General Berthier, his chief of staff, entered the room, rubbing his eyes. "Sire, it is nearly 3 in the morning. The men will be ready at first light." Napoleon didn't look up from the map. "They will march better if I march them in my mind first." He tapped the Danube River with his index finger. "We will move before the Austrians suspect. But they sleep heavily, and we do not." It was true Napoleon's armies often had the advantage simply because their commander believed time was a battlefield in itself. He followed a pattern few could endure. 2 to 3 hours of deep sleep at night, broken by periods of intense planning and short naps during the day that could last as little as 15 minutes. His aides joked that his eyelids were like cavalry doors, weighty to swing open at the sound of opportunity. One evening during the campaign in Italy, Napoleon was found asleep on a rock, his bicorn hat tilted forward, rain drizzling on his coat. The soldier who discovered him hesitated to wake the emperor, but before he could decide, Napoleon's eyes snapped open. "How long?" Napoleon asked. 10 minutes, sire," the soldier stammered. "Good. I dreamed we surrounded them. Let's make it so." Historians still debate whether his sleep schedule made him sharper or simply burned his body like a candle from both ends. But in Napoleon's own words, rest was never the goal, victory was. 6 hours sleep for a man, 7 for a woman, 8 for a fool, he once declared. Whether this was bravado or genuine conviction, no one could deny that his relentless rhythm kept him ahead of slower-moving foes. Back in the war room, as Berthier reluctantly returned to his quarters, Napoleon rolled up the maps and leaned back in his chair. For the first time in hours, his breathing slowed. He closed his eyes not for the night, but for a brief, tactical surrender to rest. Somewhere between waking and dreaming, he saw the battlefield already won. Thomas Edison, the man who tried to outsmart sleep, the dim glow of a single oil lamp flickered against the walls of Thomas Edison's workshop. The air was thick with the scent of hot metal, varnish, and ink. Papers lay scattered across every surface, half-finished sketches curling at the edges. Test tubes clinking faintly whenever the workbench trembled. It was past midnight, but Edison's eyes were bright, his hands restless. To him, the concept of 8 hours of sleep was not only unnecessary, was an enemy of productivity. "Sleep," he often said with a dismissive wave of his hand, "is a heritage from our cave-dwelling ancestors. We can train ourselves to need less of it." Train himself he did. Edison adopted what we now call a polyphasic sleep schedule. Instead of sleeping for a long stretch at night, he would take short naps throughout the day, 20 minutes here, 30 minutes there. It allowed him to work late into the night and wake before the sun without feeling completely drained. At least that's what he claimed. One of his assistants, a young apprentice named Samuel, remembered vividly how Edison could be in the middle of discussing a phonograph improvement when he would suddenly slouch into a chair, close his eyes, and drift off, sometimes with a wrench still in his hand. 10 minutes later, he would jolt awake, instantly resuming his thought as though the world had paused for him. Edison's logic was simple. Why surrender a third of your life to unconsciousness when you could be inventing the future? His workshop reflected that philosophy. There were narrow cots tucked between machines, benches with pillows hidden under blueprints, and even padded chairs placed near the warm hum of generators for quick cat naps. The team often joked that Edison's secret lab assistants were the naps he took between experiments. Yet for all his claims that he needed little sleep, Samuel noticed something when the pace slowed. When Edison was away from the rush of inventing, his body seemed to demand repayment. On rare vacations, the great inventor would fall into deep, almost immovable sleep, sometimes lasting 10 or more hours. Was Edison truly built to function on scraps of rest? Or was he simply borrowing time from his body, paying the interest later? What's undeniable is this: his relentless work ethic and unusual sleeping patterns shaped history. Without those countless hours in the darkened lab, tinkering while the rest of the world slept, the phonograph, the motion picture camera, and the perfected electric light bulb might have taken decades longer to arrive. But there's a cautionary whisper hidden in his story. Edison's genius burned bright, but it came at a cost. Friends remembered his irritability during long stretches of work, his tendency to forget meals, and even moments where fatigue clouded his judgment. His own body eventually forced him to rest, whether he liked it or not. As Samuel grew older, he often thought back to those nights in the workshop, the clinking of tools, the scratch of a pencil on paper, the sudden silence when Edison would drift into a nap mid-sentence. The memory taught him that sleep was not a weakness, but a resource. Even a mind as brilliant as Edison's could not completely cheat nature. And perhaps, somewhere in the quiet, while the oil lamp burned low and the inventor's eyes were closed, his best ideas were quietly stitching themselves together in the dark corners of his dreaming mind. The dream that moved a nation, Martin Luther King Jr.'s restful reflections. It was the summer of 1963, and the air in Washington, D.C. felt heavy, not just from the August heat, but from the weight of history about to be made. Martin Luther King Jr. sat at his desk late into the night, papers scattered across the surface like fallen leaves. His advisors had told him he needed a speech ready for the March on Washington. The clock ticked past midnight. The house was quiet, except for the faint hum of the city outside. Dr. King had been working tirelessly for weeks: meetings, rallies, interviews, threats, and travel. His body was exhausted, but his mind was restless. At that moment, his wife, Coretta, stepped into the room. "Martin, you need to sleep," she said softly. "You've been at it for hours. The words will come to you," he sighed. "I can't just stop, Coretta. This speech, it matters." She placed a hand on his shoulder. "Yes, it matters, and you will deliver it. But remember, even the strongest leaders need rest to hear their own thoughts clearly." Reluctantly, Dr. King followed her advice. He left the desk behind, lay in bed, and let the world fade away. Sleep took him deep and unbroken. That night, his mind wandered into the vast, mysterious landscapes of dreams. He found himself standing before a massive crowd, the sun high above. People were cheering, their faces lit with hope. Words flowed from his mouth, not written notes, not rehearsed lines, but raw, vivid truth. "I have a dream." He awoke with a start. The dream still echoed in his ears. It was early morning, sunlight streaming through the curtains. He sat up, reached for his pen, and began writing, not from the drafts on his desk, but from the fire that had ignited in his sleep. When the day of the march arrived, he stood before the Lincoln Memorial, the crowd stretching farther than the eye could see. The speech he had partially prepared sat in front of him, but at one point he looked up and abandoned the notes. The words from his dream poured out. "I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up and live out the true meaning of its creed. The rest is history." Those lines became immortal not because they were perfectly planned, but because they came from a rested mind. Touched by the clarity of sleep, Dr. King later reflected that rest was indeed just a break from work. It was a space where ideas could grow without pressure, where visions could take shape before reality set in. And so, the dream that changed America was born, quite literally, in a dream. The nap that changed history. The day Napoleon dreamed of victory, the camp was quiet that afternoon. The Battle of Austerlitz was only hours away. Yet Emperor Napoleon Bonaparte, one of history's most brilliant military strategists, was lying under a tree, eyes closed, resting as if he were in the safety of his Parisian palace. His officers exchanged worried glances. The enemy forces were massive Russia, and Austria combined, numbering them nearly 2-1. The tension in the French camp was palpable. Horses shuffled nervously, soldiers sharpened their bayonets, and the cold December wind bit into every exposed hand. Yet there Napoleon lay, his bicorn hat tilted over his face, breathing slowly, slipping into the short, deep sleep he was famous for. The man who slept in snatches. Napoleon's sleep habits were legendary and baffling. He wasn't one for long, luxurious nights in bed. Instead, he claimed that 4 to 5 hours at night, broken into segments, and occasional 20-minute naps were enough for him to remain sharp. In fact, he believed that naps could sharpen the mind faster than coffee, especially before important decisions. Before battles, he would sometimes walk among his men, reassure them, and then disappear for a short rest even, as enemy troops were marching toward him. The nap before Austerlitz, on December 2, 1805, Napoleon's army of about 68,000 faced nearly 90,000 enemy troops. The stakes were enormous. And yet, just before the battle, Napoleon took his now famous pre-battle nap. While he slept, officers whispered strategies, checked maps, and debated the risks. But Napoleon's mind, resting briefly, was doing something else. It was organizing information, replaying tactics, and, as he would later claim, visualizing movements of troops as clearly as if he were already watching the battle unfold. When he awoke, he sat up, dusted off his uniform, and smiled a small, confident smile that sent waves of calm through his men. The battle and the aftermath. Napoleon used the terrain masterfully, feigned weakness on his right flank to lure the Allies in, and then crushed them with a counterattack at the center. The victory was so complete that it became known as the Battle of the Three Emperors, cementing his reputation as a genius tactician. Later, when asked how he had the clarity to make such bold moves, Napoleon reportedly shrugged and said, "I won the battle in my sleep." Lessons from Napoleon's naps. Napoleon's story shows that rest can be a weapon. A clear, refreshed mind is often more dangerous than a sword. His strategic napping allowed him to keep mental sharpness, even during exhausting campaigns. Modern science backs this up. Short naps can improve decision-making, boost creativity, and restore energy far more effectively than pushing through fatigue. Napoleon may have conquered much of Europe, but one of his greatest victories came from something as simple as closing his eyes for 20 minutes. Salvador, master of dreams and micronaps in the golden light of his Spanish studio, Salvador sat poised with a paintbrush hovering over a blank canvas. Yes, the surreal images swirling in his mind were too vivid to capture fully, but he was determined to trap their essence before they slipped away. As genius didn't come just from hours of focused painting, it came from something far stranger and more mysterious. The twilight world between waking and sleeping, known as the hypnagogic state. The artist who painted dreams believed that the moments just before sleep were a doorway to pure creativity. During this liminal phase, when the mind drifts from wakefulness to dream, strange and vivid images flash before the eyes, bizarre, surreal visions that defy logic but brim with symbolic meaning. To harness this, invented a curious method. He would sit in a chair holding a heavy metal key loosely between his fingers. Beneath his hand, a metal plate waited on the floor. As S' body relaxed, and he slipped towards sleep, the key would fall, clanging against the plate and waking him instantly. At that exact moment, between wakefulness and sleep, would capture the strange images and fleeting thoughts rushing through his mind, often rushing to sketch them before they vanished like smoke. Micronaps of inspiration. These brief micronaps, lasting only seconds or minutes, became the cornerstone of his creative process. By cycling repeatedly through this state, he accessed a flood of surreal imagery that defined his paintings. He once described the process. In the hypnagogic state, The mind dances freely, unchained by reason. That is where true art is born. Unlike traditional artists who relied solely on conscious effort, method blended science and surrealism, he used sleep itself as a paintbrush. The fruits of hypnagogia, some of his most famous works. The persistence of memory with its melting clocks. The elephants with impossibly long legs code the strange and dreamlike visions he glimpsed during his micronaps. This approach gave a creative edge, allowing him to produce art that was both visionary and deeply personal. Modern science validates his intuition today. Neuroscientists recognize the hypnagogic state as a fertile ground for insight and problem-solving. Many inventors and creatives report breakthroughs during this transitional phase. This deliberate use of micronaps anticipated modern practices of nap hacking, demonstrating how sleep can be a deliberate tool for creativity, not just rest. A legacy painted in dreams. Salvador. Story reminds us that the boundary between sleep and wakefulness is not a barrier, but a bridge, a place where imagination can soar beyond the constraints of logic. By embracing micronaps in the hypnagogic state, didn't just create art, transform the way we understand creativity itself. Charles Darwin, the afternoon snoozer, in a quiet room filled with specimens of beetles, fossils, and pressed plants, Charles Darwin sat surrounded by the treasures of his lifelong curiosity. The year was 1859, and the manuscript for On the Origin of Species lay in careful stacks on his desk. The weight of his revolutionary ideas pressed on him, but so did the exhaustion of years spent observing, writing, and thinking. Darwin, a man of routine and deliberate pace, understood something crucial about his own mind. It needed rest to function at its best. The habit of the afternoon nap. Unlike the stereotype of a restless genius burning the midnight oil, Darwin's day was punctuated by a cherished ritual, a mid-afternoon nap, often lasting an hour or more. In the afternoons, after hours of research and writing, Darwin would retreat to his bedroom, lie down on a simple couch, and allow his mind to drift. His family and servants knew better than to disturb him during these precious moments. It was as if those quiet pauses were a secret source of strength. Why did Darwin nap? Darwin believed that these naps did more than simply refresh his body. They helped him consolidate complex ideas, sleep aids in memory and learning, allowing his brain to organize observations into coherent theories. Boost creativity. The rest gave space for new connections. Between disparate facts, such as beetle behaviors, and the natural world that fueled his evolutionary insights. Managed stress and fatigue. Scientific work was grueling, and naps helped him maintain focus during long periods of study. Nap time, eureka time. One anecdote tells of Darwin dozing in his study, only to wake with a sudden flash of inspiration. Ideas for natural selection, adaptation, and survival swirled in his head, clearer than ever before. Though he worked hard, Darwin respected the power of rest as part of his creative process, a partnership between waking effort and sleeping insight. The gentleman's rhythm. Darwin's sleep schedule was simple and disciplined. A solid night's sleep, typically 7 to 8 hours. A reliable afternoon nap, as a pause in the day's labors. This balance allowed him to sustain years of painstaking research and writing that changed the course of science. The legacy of the afternoon snoozer. Darwin's approach challenges the myth of the genius who never sleeps. Instead, it celebrates the wisdom of listening to the body's signals, honoring rest as essential for great achievement. His naps were not laziness, they were a vital ingredient in the recipe that led to the theory of evolution. Maya Angelou. The rituals of rest and the wellspring of creativity in the quiet dawn hours of a modest hotel room. The world outside barely stirred. The soft hum of distant traffic and the occasional bird call created a subtle soundtrack to Maya Angelou's sanctuary of solitude. The heavy curtains were drawn tightly, shielding the room from the intrusion of light and sound, allowing her a cocoon of calm. Inside, the rhythmic scratch of pen on paper punctuated the silence. Maya's eyes moved steadily over the pages in front of her, weaving stories, poetry, and reflections that would later inspire millions. Yet, the journey to these words was as much about what she did before and after, the rituals of sleep and rest, as about the raw power of her intellect or memory. The sacred relationship between sleep and creativity. Maya Angelou's creative process was a dance between wakefulness and rest. She knew instinctively that great writing required more than mere hours at the desk. It demanded a delicate balance between intense focus and deep renewal. For her, sleep was not a passive act, but an active, intentional practice. It was a form of self-respect, a way to honor the mind and body that bore witness to the stories she was destined to tell. "I always wrote early in the morning before the sun came up," she explained in interviews. "And I would sleep early, often as early as 6 or 7 p.m., to make sure I was rested for the work ahead." Her schedule was disciplined, almost ritualistic. By carving out this protected time for rest, she created a fertile ground where ideas could take root and flourish. The rituals of rest. Maya's sleep environment was carefully crafted to nurture her creative spirit. In hotels or homes, she insisted on darkened rooms, quiet surroundings, and a sense of sanctuary free from distraction. This dedication to setting a peaceful stage was a powerful statement about how seriously she treated rest. Her nightly rituals included closing the curtains to block all light, sometimes using heavy drapes or even layers of blankets to ensure darkness, eliminating noise, either through white noise machines or by choosing quiet spaces, so her mind could fully detach from the chaos of the day. Limiting interruptions by informing staff or family that rest time was sacred and non-negotiable. Mindful breathing and gentle stretches before bed to signal to her body that it was time to relax. These were not mere comforts, but acts of devotion to the creative process. Psychological benefits of sleep for Maya Angelou. The importance of sleep in Maya Angelou's life extended beyond physical rest. It was a cornerstone of psychological health. Her journey through adversity, trauma, and triumph gave her a profound understanding of how rest supports emotional resilience. Sleep served as a reset button for her psyche, a moment where the burden of past pain could momentarily lift and her spirit could recharge. This mental rejuvenation allowed her to write with honesty, compassion, and clarity. Scientific research today supports what Maya's experience illustrates. Sleep helps regulate emotions, reduces anxiety and depression, and facilitates problem-solving and creativity. Yes. In interviews, Angelou spoke about the restorative power of sleep to help her face difficult subjects with grace. "When I rest well, my thoughts are clearer, my emotions steadier. I can reach deeper truths in my writing." This balance of mind and body was crucial for a woman who often explored themes of identity, racism, love, and loss. Sleep, as a catalyst for creative flow, creativity, Maya believed, was like a river that needed to flow freely. Sleep helped clear the debris of daily distractions and stress that could dam that river. "The subconscious mind," she said, "often spoke most clearly after rest, offering insights and images that could not emerge during the chaos of waking life." Many of her most poignant lines were born in the quiet moments following deep sleep. She described how ideas would arrive fully formed, like gifts waiting patiently beneath the surface. This relationship between sleep and creativity is echoed by numerous artists and writers, who have found that rest unlocks their imagination in ways that relentless work cannot. Discipline and flexibility in sleep patterns. Maya Angelou's approach to sleep was both disciplined and flexible. She understood that rest was essential, but she also knew that creativity could strike at odd hours. Sometimes, she would wake in the middle of the night with a flood of inspiration, scribbling notes by dim lamplight before returning to bed. This balance allowed her to honor the natural rhythms of her body, without sacrificing the demands of her artistic process. Her routine was not rigid but responsive, an ongoing dialogue between rest and creation. The legacy of Maya Angelou's rest practices. Maya Angelou's life and work demonstrate that rest is not a luxury but a foundation for greatness. In a world that often glorifies non-stop hustle and undervalues sleep, her example reminds us that honoring our need for rest is a revolutionary act. Her rituals and routines, born of necessity and intuition, shaped a literary voice that continues to inspire generations. By protecting her sleep, she protected her creativity, and through her creativity, she transformed culture. Conclusion. Rest as revolutionary act. Maya Angelou's story teaches us that sleep is deeply intertwined with psychological health and creative brilliance. Her rituals were more than habits. They were acts of courage and care. In honoring her need for rest, She opened doors to the deepest parts of herself, allowing her words to resonate with authenticity and power. Her legacy challenges us all to rethink our relationship with sleep, not as an enemy of productivity, but as its indispensable partner. Benjamin Franklin, the early riser and methodical sleeper, the faint glow of dawn filtered through the shutters of a Philadelphia room where a man sat upright in bed. Already awake, a small candle flickering beside his writing desk. This was Benjamin Franklin, one of the founding fathers of the United States. A polymath whose curiosity spanned science, politics, invention, and literature. Franklin was not only known for his wisdom and wit, but also for his carefully crafted daily routine schedule that revolved around discipline, balance, and most notably, a rigorous sleep and work pattern. The early bird catches the worm, Benjamin Franklin famously declared. Early to bed and early to rise makes a man healthy, wealthy, and wise. But his relationship with sleep was more complex and nuanced than this aphorism suggests. Franklin's day began with waking early, often at 5 a.m., when the world was quiet and his mind was freshest. This early rising gave him precious hours to reflect, write, and plan the day ahead before the bustle of city life took over. He believed that starting the day with intention and clarity was essential for productivity, and that sleep should be sufficient, but not excessive. A structured day for a varied mind, Franklin's daily routine was meticulously structured. His autobiography reveals that he divided the day into blocks dedicated to specific activities. From work and study to meals and socializing, sleep was a crucial part of this structure, not only to rejuvenate the body, but to provide a mental reset between periods of intense focus. He generally allotted around 7 hours for sleep, from about 10 p.m. to 5 a.m., balancing rest with the desire to maximize waking hours. The philosophy behind Franklin's sleep habits: Franklin viewed sleep pragmatically. It was a necessary function, but not a pastime. He reasoned that a man could not be productive without proper rest, but also that sleeping too long was wasteful. This philosophy was intertwined with his broader views on time management and self-improvement. Every hour counted, and balance was the key. The power of reflection: each morning, Franklin practiced a form of self-reflection or meditation. He would ask himself, "What good shall I do this day?" And in the evening, before retiring, he would reflect on, "What good have I done today?" This practice fostered mindfulness and intentionality, and it was supported by his disciplined sleep schedule that left his mind clear and focused. How sleep supported creativity and invention? Franklin's many inventions, from the lightning rod to bifocal glasses, required creativity, experimentation, and persistence. His consistent sleep pattern helped maintain mental clarity, allowing him to switch between diverse fields of interest effectively. By ensuring restful sleep, he preserved his cognitive agility, memory, and problem-solving skills. Naps and breaks. Though Franklin promoted an early to bed, early to rise schedule, he also recognized the value of short naps or rest periods, especially during long, demanding days. He often took brief pauses to refresh his mind and body, understanding that short rests could restore energy and sustain productivity. It's balancing work, rest, and leisure. Franklin was a firm believer in balance, not only between sleep and work, but also between labor and leisure. His evenings often included socializing, reading, or engaging in philosophical discussions, which nourished his intellectual and emotional well-being. Sleep was part of this balanced lifestyle, providing the foundation for sustained achievement. Legacy of discipline and balance. Benjamin Franklin's approach to sleep and daily routine exemplifies the power of discipline, balanced with respect for natural rhythms. His success was not just the product of genius, but of consistent habits that included honoring the need for rest. His famous adage about early rising endures not only as a call to wakefulness, but as a reminder that productivity flows best from a rested, intentional mind. Modern insights. What science says about sleep and genius. The soft glow of a laboratory monitor illuminated the face of Dr. Elena Moreno, a neuroscientist deeply engrossed in her work. Around her, EEG machines buzzed quietly, tracking brainwaves of volunteers entering various stages of sleep. As she analyzed the data, a powerful realization took shape. The secret to genius may lie not just in relentless study or innate talent, but in the hidden cycles of sleep. The age-old mystery of sleep and creativity. For centuries, humans have pondered the link between sleep and creativity. The tales of historical geniuses, Einstein's dreams, Edison's micronaps, hypnagogic sketches hinted that rest was more than mere recovery. It was a gateway to innovation. Today, modern science is finally catching up, peeling back the layers of mystery to reveal how sleep shapes the workings of the creative mind, locking creativity in the sleeping brain. Dr. Moreno's research focused on the hypnagogic state, the fleeting moments between wakefulness and sleep where the brain floods with vivid imagery and ideas, much like Salvador described decades ago. Using brain scans and cognitive tests, she and her team confirmed that during this transition, the brain's default mode network becomes highly active, fostering free association and novel connections. Inhibitions in logical thinking loosen, allowing unusual ideas to surface. The prefrontal cortex relaxes, decreasing critical judgment and encouraging imagination. This neurological state is a fertile ground for creativity, a finding echoed by many artists and scientists who have harnessed it, consciously or not. The role of REM sleep and geniusly insight further into the night during REM rapid eye movement. Sleep, the brain continues its creative work. Studies show that REM sleep enhances problem-solving skills by integrating unrelated memories, boosts emotional processing, which is critical for artistic expression, stimulates the production of neurotransmitters that support learning and plasticity. The brain's ability to reorganize information during REM helps geniuses piece together puzzles that seem impossible while awake. Sleep's impact on memory and learning. For any creative or intellectual endeavor, memory consolidation is vital. Sleep plays a starring role here, transferring information from short-term to long-term memory storage. Scientific experiments demonstrate that, without adequate sleep, new learning is impaired. Sleep deprivation leads to reduced attention and increased errors. Naps can improve memory retention and creative problem-solving. These findings support the habits of geniuses like Benjamin Franklin and Winston Churchill, who incorporated naps into their routines. The science of sleep cycles and productivity. Modern sleep science reveals that cycles of light and deep sleep, combined with REM, are crucial for peak brain function. Optimizing these cycles leads to enhanced cognitive flexibility, improved decision-making, and innovation, greater emotional resilience under stress. This explains why even great minds known for long work hours like Thomas Edison needed those brief rests to maintain sharpness. The dark side, sleep deprivation and creative blocks. Science also warns of the dangers of insufficient sleep. Chronic deprivation impairs creativity and motivation. The brain's ability to generate novel ideas diminishes. Emotional regulation falters, increasing stress and burnout risk. Many modern geniuses struggle with sleep problems, highlighting the need to balance drive with rest. Practical applications. How to harness sleep for creativity. Researchers now recommend strategies inspired by genius sleep habits, using power naps to rejuvenate the mind. Scheduling creative work during peak alertness hours. Leveraging hypnagogic moments for brainstorming, prioritizing consistent sleep schedules. These tips bridge ancient wisdom with modern science. The future of genius and sleep research. As neuroscience advances, the connection between sleep and genius will deepen. Technologies like brain-computer interfaces may soon help individuals tap into creative states more reliably. Dr. Moreno's work, and that of others, promise a future where sleep is recognized not just as rest, but as a vital component of human potential. Conclusion: sleep is the unsung partner of genius. Modern science affirms what history's greatest minds intuited. Sleep is a powerful ally in creativity and achievement. By understanding and respecting the brain's need for rest, we unlock doors to innovation, problem-solving, and profound insight. The genius of the past and future alike may rest, quite literally, on the pillow. Conclusion: crafting your own sleep secrets for success. The story of human achievement is as much a story of rest as it is of relentless effort. From the war rooms of Winston Churchill to the studios of Salvador, from the quiet naps of Charles to the deliberate sleep rituals of Maya Angelou, history's greatest minds have shared a common truth. Rest is not the enemy of success, but its essential partner. As we arrive at the end of this exploration, the question becomes clear. How can we, in our own lives, craft sleep habits that unlock our potential, that allow us to tap into creativity, clarity, and resilience, just like the geniuses before us. Learning from history's geniuses, the lives of these extraordinary individuals reveal a fascinating spectrum of sleep habits. Nap strategists like Napoleon and Churchill understood the power of short rest to sharpen decision-making in crisis. The hypnagogic explorers such as Salvador and Thomas Edison leveraged transitional states between wakefulness and sleep for bursts of creativity. The disciplined sleepers like Benjamin Franklin and Maya Angelou built routines that balanced rest and work with intention. The dream believers such as Martin Luther King Jr. and Albert Einstein credited dreams and deep sleep phases with profound insights. No single formula emerges, but a shared respect for rest as a dynamic, intentional, and personal process shines through. The science behind the stories. Modern neuroscience confirms the vital role of sleep stages: light, deep, REM, and hypnagogic, in memory consolidation, emotional regulation, and creative problem solving. Sleep deprivation is more than a minor inconvenience. It impairs cognitive function, creativity, and physical health. Power naps, consistent schedules, and quiet rituals are scientifically supported tools that enhance mental performance. Crafting your own sleep secrets inspired by history and science, you can tailor your sleep approach to suit your life and goals. Here are practical steps. 1. Prioritize consistent sleep schedules. Going to bed and waking up at regular times reinforces your body's natural rhythms, improving sleep quality and daytime alertness. 2. Create a restful environment. Dark, quiet, and cool spaces foster deep sleep. Consider blackout curtains, white noise, or other tools to minimize disruptions. 3. Embrace strategic napping. Short naps, 15 to 30 minutes, can boost creativity and energy without interfering with nighttime sleep. 4. Harness hypnagogic states. Try relaxing your mind while gently holding a small object that drops as you begin to doze, like Edison's metal ball trick to catch moments of creative insight. 5. Mind your evening rituals. Wind down with calming activities, reading, meditation, gentle stretching to signal your body it's time to rest. 6. Listen to your body's needs. Be flexible and compassionate with yourself. Quality of sleep matters more than quantity alone. Overcoming modern challenges in today's fast-paced, always-on world, sleep often takes a back seat. Screens, stress, and busy schedules disrupt natural rhythms. To counter this, limit screen time before bed to reduce blue light exposure. Practice stress-reducing techniques like deep breathing or journaling. Set boundaries around work and technology use in the evening. Remember, rest is an investment in your success, not a luxury. Sleep is a creative partner. The stories you've journeyed through reveal that sleep is not merely downtime, but a partner in innovation and achievement. Whether you're solving complex problems, creating art, or leading others, honoring your need for rest unlocks deeper potential. Final thoughts: history's greatest minds didn't just work harder, they worked smarter by listening to their bodies and minds. They taught us that the path to genius winds through the landscapes of sleep. As you craft your own sleep secrets, may you find not only rest but inspiration, clarity, and the resilience to pursue your greatest dreams.